Okay, y'all, lock all the way in, because what 50 Cent just pulled on Rick Ross over the last 48 hours might be the single most surgical, most disrespectful, most perfectly timed public dismantling of a rap legacy this culture has ever watched happen in real time, and the part that should genuinely scare every artist paying attention is that Rick Ross handed him the weapon, loaded it himself, and then stood directly in front of it smiling. I am not being dramatic. By the time we get to the Tupac layer of this story, yes, Tupac, we are really going there tonight. You are going to understand why people inside the industry are quietly texting each other that this was not a troll session. It was an execution. And Rick Ross never even felt the trapdoor open under him. Now, if you thought this feud died years ago, if you figured 20 years of shots, streaming wars, and boxing callouts had finally burned itself down to ash, you were reading the credits and assuming the movie was over. It is not over. It restarted this week, and this chapter is nastier than anything that came before it. So we are going to walk through every beat in the exact order it landed, because the order is the story. Most of what you've seen floating around your timeline is not just thin, it's backwards. Reaction channels sprinted to the Tupac headline. Podcast pages sprinted to Eminem. Gossip accounts sprinted to the mansion joke. Almost nobody bothered to lay these moments in the sequence, they actually happened. And once you see the real order, you can't unsee it. Let's set the table. Rick Ross just dropped his newest album, the project he spent months building up as his big statement. More than 20 features. Billboards. A full press run. Every ounce of that Maybach music polish turned up to max volume. The message was supposed to be simple. The biggest boss still runs Miami, and everything Southern underneath it. Then the first week numbers came in, and, depending on who you ask, they landed somewhere in the low 20,000s. That is not a soft debut. That is a bruise in broad daylight. Within a week, Rick Ross was trending for reasons that had nothing to do with a single bar on the actual record. And 50 Cent, a man who has treated trolling Rick Ross like a licensed profession since roughly 2005, did not waste a single hour. The memes were everywhere before the chart even finished updating. The reaction videos were live by the next morning. And pay attention to what Rick Ross did next, because this is where the whole thing turns. He did not clap back with numbers. He did not drop a diss record. Instead, Ross floated above it. He started doing interviews about longevity. He sat on podcasts and talked about playing the long game, about bot streams and inflated numbers, about how the real flex right now is owning a clean catalog that pays you forever. His whole posture became, I don't need to fight 50 Cent on his turf, because I'm playing a bigger, quieter game. And honestly, in isolation, that framing works for a decent slice of the audience. His fans ate it up. They quoted it like scripture. It was posted across timelines like a mantra. But here's what Rick Ross badly misjudged, and honestly, what he has misjudged for 2 decades straight. 50 Cent does not respect calm. 50 Cent exploits calm. The second Ross tried to rise above the sales conversation, 50 zoomed in on every luxury flex Ross has ever posted and started pulling the threads one by one. And he did it with that amused little chuckle that somehow makes the man on the receiving end look twice as angry by comparison. It was patient. It was measured. And if we're being honest, it was remarkably effective television, even when you could tell the man absorbing it was boiling underneath. First thread, the airport. A video starts circulating of Rick Ross waiting on a commercial flight, and the internet absolutely erupts, because this is the same man who told us for years that he refused to even charter a jet until he could buy one outright, that he waited 20+ years and treated it as an investment. Ross jumped in quick with his explanation. The jet is being updated with Starlink. He chose to fly commercial to go party with Trick Daddy, and when flights start costing him 6 figures, he'll simply buy more yachts. Smooth answer. Confident answer. On a normal week, maybe it works. But this was not a normal week, because 50 Cent was already standing there holding the next thread, and the jokes about the boss hiding at a commercial gate wrote themselves before Ross even finished talking. Second thread, the watch. 50 Cent went on record claiming that the Greenstone AP Rick Ross has been photographed flexing is not authentic, that the specific model was only produced twice, in 2 sizes, and that he personally knows both owners, and neither of them is Rick Ross. Now, that is 50's claim, not a confirmed fact, and I want to be real clear about that. But it doesn't even matter whether it's provable, because provability was never the point. The point was the question mark. Once that question mark is floating over a man's wrist, every photo he has ever posted gets re-examined by millions of people who suddenly fancy themselves certified watch experts. The flex stops being a flex and starts being an exhibit. Third thread, and this is the one that genuinely made me put my phone down and stare at the wall, the mansion. 50 Cent posted that the estate Rick Ross has been filming tours through, the $100 million property that anchors his entire Biggest Boss mythology, is allegedly sitting on Airbnb as a short-term rental. Allegedly. Sit with that for a second. He told the entire hip-hop internet that the crown jewel of Rick Ross's public identity might be a house you can book by the weekend. And y'all, the internet went full detective mode within the hour. Screenshots multiplied. Real estate pages got tagged. Some swore the listing was real, others insisted it was Ross's actual home, and 50 Cent was bluffing purely for engagement. Nobody could prove it either way in the moment, and that is exactly the play. 50 Cent does not need to win the argument. He only needs to plant the doubt, because once the audience starts asking the question themselves, the persona starts leaking credibility. Every mansion post Rick Ross makes from now on carries a footnote. Every flex trails a parade of Airbnb jokes in the comments. That's not trolling. That's branding warfare. Because if the house is rented, what does everything else mean? How much of the luxury persona is real, and how much of it is an extremely expensive, extremely repeatable photo shoot? Those aren't rhetorical questions I'm inventing for drama. Those were the exact questions bouncing across timelines within minutes of that post going up. Now, to his credit, Rick Ross did not take all of this quietly. He fired back in that slow Miami cadence, and on paper, the comeback looked heavy. He told the up-and-comers that if he had wanted a big first-week number, he could have simply bought one. He pointed out that the artist 50 Cent is backing can't show a palm tree in their own driveway, while he's sitting on $100 million of Florida real estate. Against a different opponent, on a different night, that response owns the news cycle and gets clipped 100 times over. But this is 50 Cent we are talking about, and 50 Cent does not respond in the moment. He watches. He measures. He waits for you to spend your best ammunition. And then he changes the entire battlefield. Because right while the internet was still choking on the Airbnb story, 50 Cent sat down for a completely separate interview and dropped what might be the most surreal announcement of his entire post-music career. Calm as a man already 3 moves ahead, he revealed that he has a brand new record locked in for the upcoming Street Fighter movie, and the track features not just him, not just Eminem, but Tupac Shakur. Tupac. Gone almost 30 years, sitting behind the most tightly protected vocal archive in American music. Not a sample. Not an interpolation. An actual placed verse. And when the interviewer asked the obvious question, is this some kind of AI reconstruction, 50 Cent shut it down immediately. No artificial intelligence, he said. According to him, the Shakur estate approved the record, released previously unheard material specifically for this project, and cleared everything. Theme song for the film. Paperwork legitimate. Locked in. And watching that clip, you could feel that he knew exactly the size of the bomb he had just dropped. Y'all, take a breath and actually picture that. 50 Cent, Eminem, and Tupac Shakur on one record, attached to a global film franchise. If that song delivers even half of what's being promised, it is not a marketing beat, it is a cultural event. Radio runs it. Streaming platforms wallpaper it. It becomes the soundtrack under every fight scene edit on the internet for the next 5 years. A whole generation of kids who never sat with a real Tupac verse hears one for the first time and thinks they discovered buried treasure. Which brings us right back to Rick Ross, because the second that announcement hit, he had 100 doors he could have walked through. He could have said nothing. He could have offered a respectful nod and kept it moving. He could have let it breathe for 72 hours. Instead, Rick Ross grabbed his phone and swung what he clearly believed was a knockout. He mocked the entire collaboration. Said 50 Cent was dropping a record with Eminem and his words, a dead legend. Said Tupac had been resting for 30 years and should be left alone. Took a swing at Eminem in the same breath, told 50 to put the G-Unit sneakers on clearance and go do a Tony Yayo and Lloyd Banks reunion instead. He laughed through the whole clip, laid back, supremely confident. Watch it closely, and you are looking at a man convinced he just ended the conversation. He did not end the conversation. He walked directly into the room 50 Cent had already built for him. Look at what Rick Ross actually did with that swing. He didn't critique the music. There's no music to critique yet. He didn't touch the timing, the craft, or the film tie-in. He attacked the very concept of a legend's voice appearing on a modern record. And that swing lands on absolutely nobody. It doesn't touch 50 Cent because 50 didn't make that call alone. It doesn't touch the culture because the culture is pressing play the second that record drops whether Rick Ross approves or not. And the Shakur estate, an estate that has been famously, almost obsessively protective of Tupac's archive, while his mother was alive and in every framework since. If that estate genuinely cleared this, that's not a signature. That's practically a blessing. Which means Rick Ross, in trying to embarrass 50 Cent, drifted into the far more dangerous position of appearing to second-guess how Tupac's own family chooses to protect and extend his legacy. That is a line veterans in this industry know better than to cross in the middle of a public feud. That is not a shot at a rival anymore. That is a shot at a family's stewardship of an icon. And what did 50 Cent do the instant that comment landed? Exactly what he has done for 20 years. He pivoted. He did not explain estate paperwork. He did not defend the record. He did not fight on the ground Rick Ross chose. He simply picked up a different weapon and swung right back at the mansion, doubling down on the Airbnb story, telling his audience to look closely at a man giving tours through a house he might be renting by the week. Map every exchange in this feud and the rhythm jumps off the page. Sneaker joke gets answered with a mansion joke. Feature count joke gets answered with an Airbnb joke. Longevity monologue gets answered with a Tupac and Eminem announcement. Every single round, 50 Cent climbs one floor higher and never defends the same ground twice. That is not luck. That is 2 decades of understanding precisely what keeps a modern audience watching instead of scrolling. And notice something else, because this is the part that tells you Ross still doesn't understand the board he's playing on. When he went at the G-Unit sneakers, when he joked about 50 Cent having free time now that his boxing promotion plans have apparently stalled, he was trying to fight 50 Cent on the business front. And historically, that is the one battlefield 50 Cent owns completely. Vitamin water. Spirits. Television empires. Film production. Book publishing. Podcast networks. Whatever you think of the man personally, that business resume reads like a case study taught in actual classrooms. Challenging him there in front of a business-literate audience is like challenging a shark to a swim in its own reef. And 50 Cent knows it, which is exactly why every business jab from Rick Ross gets answered with a persona jab in return. Ross swings at the portfolio. 50 swings at the identity. One of those cuts heals. The other one doesn't. And there is one more exchange almost nobody caught, and it might end up being the most damaging moment of this entire stretch. In the middle of all the jokes, 50 Cent slipped in a genuine character accusation. He revived an old claim that Rick Ross once blamed a black woman for getting pulled from certain shows that were her productions, her concepts, built around him. And then 50 added the line that's been quietly moving through group chats ever since, telling Ross to show that same energy, that same loyalty, to the woman who gave him thousands of episodes of exposure, the way he shows grace to Eminem. A white superstar he's never said a bad word about. Y'all, that is not a punchline. That is a character indictment, and those follow a public figure for a decade. So far, Rick Ross has not addressed that specific claim directly. Not in stories, not on a podcast, not anywhere. He has pivoted around it every single time with another monologue about longevity and bot streams. And fair or not, in this economy of attention, silence gets read as a confession. Now, I have to be fair here, because I am not going to pretend there's only one defensible opinion in this. There is a real, sincere argument that some legends should be left exactly where they rest. Even with estate approval, even with unheard material and full family blessing, hearing Tupac on a modern movie soundtrack can genuinely feel like a compromise to a real chunk of the audience. That is a position worth respecting. It's part of why Rick Ross's comment resonated with some people, even if he probably wasn't making it for the purest reasons. But here's the problem. The strongest version of that argument doesn't arrive wrapped in a punchline. It doesn't come from a man who has been publicly feuding with the record's creator for 20 years. The moment a sincere concern gets stapled to a personal grudge, it stops sounding like concern and starts sounding like a shot. And every ounce of credibility behind it evaporates on contact. That has been Rick Ross's fatal flaw this entire week. He keeps raising points that could actually land, and then delivering them in a way that guarantees they won't. And if you zoom all the way out, there's a pattern here that repeats with almost mechanical consistency. Whenever 50 Cent is entering a new business phase, a film about to drop, a show about to premiere, a soundtrack about to be announced, a feud mysteriously heats up. Never with a random target. Always with someone who has enough recognition to trend, enough emotion to respond, and enough audience overlap to guarantee eyeballs. Rick Ross checks every single box and has for years. That is not a coincidence. Every mansion joke, every meme, every Airbnb comment is functioning as free advertising, keeping 50 Cent's name stapled to the top of the conversation right up until that Street Fighter record actually drops. Whether it's calculation or pure instinct by now, the result is identical. Rick Ross is doing free promotion for a project he already publicly trashed. That is the trap of engaging with 50 Cent at all right now. Every swing you take ends up holding the poster for whatever he's releasing next. And there are two threads almost nobody has connected, and putting them together changes the entire shape of the story. First, Street Fighter is not a small stage. It is a global property with hundreds of millions of fans across gaming, film, and merchandise. By attaching himself to that soundtrack, 50 Cent is not dropping a rap song, he is fusing his name to intellectual property that will outlive every news cycle Rick Ross is currently fighting through. Second, by criticizing the Tupac collaboration before anyone has heard a single bar, Rick Ross has positioned himself so he loses no matter how the song turns out. If it's mediocre, he looks bitter. If it's a moment, and the estate doesn't clear records that aren't moments, the culture celebrates, and the man standing off to the side frowning is the man who tried to talk everybody out of the party. There is no version of this where Rick Ross wins. And word is completely unconfirmed, so treat it as rumor, that the track could get previewed at a major public event in the coming weeks. If that's true, his timing couldn't possibly be worse. Because the second people actually hear a real Tupac verse layered over a fresh Eminem verse and a 50 Cent verse on a cinematic Street Fighter beat, every other piece of this feud turns into background noise. The mansion story fades. The sales numbers fade. The longevity talk fades. And Rick Ross becomes the man who tried to talk the culture out of a moment everybody ended up loving. That is the kind of stain that doesn't wash off, no matter how many albums come after it. So, let's ask the real question underneath all of this, because this feud stopped being about two men a long time ago. What does longevity actually look like once the numbers stop cooperating? Is it the Rick Ross model, the lifestyle, the catalog, the image, the calm Miami boss energy that photographs like power? Or is it the 50 Cent model, pivoting into film, television, franchise soundtracks, spirits, boxing, whatever keeps your name unavoidable? Neither answer is wrong, and both have receipts. But what we are watching in real time is that exact debate being fought by two of the loudest personalities this genre has ever produced, and whoever wins it writes the blueprint every artist behind them is going to follow. Here's what sticks with me most. 50 Cent understands something that Rick Ross either cannot or will not accept. In this environment, being talked about beats being right. Being unavoidable beats being liked. 50 Cent does not care if half the internet thinks he's petty. He cares that all of the internet is watching, and every time Rick Ross dignifies a jab with a comeback, he walks one step deeper into a structure 50 Cent already built. Calm is not the same thing as control. Rick Ross has all the calm in the world, the cadence, the aesthetic, the Sunday cigar energy that reads as power in a single frame. But calm without strategy is just posture, and you cannot posture your way past a man who studies your flexes, finds the crack, captions it, waits for your emotional response, and uses that response to launch the next round. Ross builds the flex. 50 studies it. 50 finds the weak point. Ross reacts emotionally. 50 turns the reaction into the next headline. That loop runs until Rick Ross decides engaging is no longer worth it, and judging by this week, that decision has not come yet. So now I need to hear from y'all, because this one is genuinely split down the middle. Should Rick Ross have stayed silent on the Tupac record, or was he right to say what a lot of people were thinking? Has 50 Cent finally taken the trolling too far, or is this just what 20 years of unfinished business looks like? Is the Airbnb mansion claim real, or the greatest bluff of his career? Does that Tupac verse actually see daylight, or does the estate quietly pull back once the pushback gets loud? And the big one, does Rick Ross ever fully recover the biggest boss image after this stretch, or is the crack in the frame permanent no matter what drops next? Get in the comments and tell me where you stand, because I read every single one, and half of what ends up in the next breakdown starts right there. And do not sleep on the next few days. If 50 Cent drops even one preview clip of that record, this entire story shifts again overnight. If Rick Ross doubles down on his comments after that preview lands, the culture might finally settle this rivalry for good. One post from either side, a podcast comment, a leaked lyric, a badly timed reply, and we are right back here breaking down the next round. This story does not have an ending. It has seasons. And based on the pace of this week, we are somewhere in the middle of one of the best ones yet. Subscribe and turn your notifications on, because when this escalates again, and it will, I want you hearing it here first, with the full sequence laid out properly, not from some rushed 40-second clip missing the parts that actually matter. This is 50 Cent versus Rick Ross, the next chapter, and there is no finale in sight. I'll talk to y'all soon.